Hang on.
I'll also be because I've waited
That's fine.
Hi guys, you want to talk? Everybody talk, and then we'll get chat to tell us.
Talk.
Thanks, Vyzz.
Hello.
Sleepezi. Give us your ASMR voice.
I don't know if I have an ASMR voice.
Well, my
This
heart
is my
disagrees.
There we go. That's the one.
Welcome in, everybody.
Welcome in. Welcome.
Welcome.
How are you all?
Rimabel. Yeah, you know, I can only do. I understand. Look, I'm not afraid of the man.
Are you sure?
I am just slightly uncomfortable by a presence with a larger brain than mine. So that's all it is. It's nothing more than that. Don't read into that too much.
And yet your videos have like 5 times the views of mine, so there's that.
Oh, I didn't know this was a competition, guys.
It is now.
There's always a competition somewhere.
We just drew a line, and now it's all fair game, guys. Hey, I said that in that video once.
Zack Fair game.
Wow.
Wow,
Yeah.
I am
That's
embarrassed
impressive.
that came
I'm
out of my
not.
mouth.
I feel less embarrassed and more. I feel more rejuvenated after you said that. I did
It,
not.
it's a fair weathered joke. Be
Mhm.
proud of it. Own it.
Okay. This is going great, guys.
Derailed from the start.
No,
Right.
look, listen, look, guys. We're all just really excited. So, okay. I know that the topic of this show is Zack, and believe me, Zack will be talked about. And there's a lot to talk about with that fine fellow. Raiden, thank you. Or Rodin V1. Thank you for the follow. Appreciate it very much. However, Zack, we'll have to wait. Let's just start off with what I think everybody wants to know here. And how do we feel about yesterday's news? And so before we do that, let's just introduce ourselves to each other and the audience. I'm going to start with me. I'm Schrodinger's baby seal. This is SEAL Team 7. I do SEAL Team 7, and I know things about mythology and religion and Final Fantasy. Done. There, that's me. Okay, let's move to Vyzz. You want to introduce yourself out of the way?
Sure, why not? I'm Vyzzuvazzadth from the Cosmo Canyon Observatory, and in today's SEAL Team 7, Zack will be dissected to bits. So yeah, that's what I do. Analyze, dissect, find out the truth. Kind of similar things that Sleepezi does, just more on a visual and spatial level sometimes. And Sleepezi is more in terms of strong in lore stuff. So
I
we
think
have
that
our
you have some
strengths and
strong lore
weaknesses.
stuff. You definitely have strong lore stuff too.
Yeah, when I'm MJ Gallagher, is my third wheel of the tricycle to help me not
You
fall.
can't trust that fool. That guy is giving you. He's giving
Yes,
each
as-
of you different bits of information, and he's watching the fandom destroy itself. So
That's right. He's
probably,
actually Emperor Palpatine of the Final Fantasy VII.
yeah.
he also might be a guest next week. Yay!
Yay.
To be fair, in Sleepezy's latest video and in
John
my
Ron, thank
latest
you.
video, it was practically the same,
Mhm.
information-wise. Just some missing on his and some missing on mine video, but no contradictions as far as I could tell. So, MJ, you're still in the clear
That's right. For now,
for now.
He's
I'm still on you about that. Zirconia.
Yeah, that's.
I have
Yeah,
some.
I could hear and feel and see the salt seeping out of the video.
only with just the also admiration for all of like what MJ has done. So the fact that like he has schooled me on everything else that I've ever talked to about with him. So the opportunity to maybe rub something in a little bit was kind of a I will say more of a joyous experience than I thought it would be. So
I bet.
anyway, so who's next? Who are we going?
well, I mean, I would say let's go with you next. That way we can have our newest edition. Have the spotlight, the big reveal. So
that's right.
Go
All
for
right. So hey everybody, I'm Sleepezi. I like the fact that by the way, you did like an opening Vyzz, like if it was like a video. So I think I'm gonna do the same thing. This is not a spoiler-free discussion podcast. I'm Sleepezi with the Sleepezi channel. I do theory videos. I do in-depth dives into like lore connections and all of that good stuff. I just released a video titled Genesis in Intergrade, or He is Back, just going over the sort of story beats of Intergrade, the past of Avalanche and Deepground, and how that directly applies to what we're seeing in Intergrade, and hopefully what we can expect from there as far as expecting who to see, events to play out in certain ways, and all that. I also, I guess, I'm more known for the Structure of Five video series, which covers a much bigger sort of scope of like the bigger picture of Remake and how it sits in the compilation of Final Fantasy VII. So, very good to be here.
Yes, and so I'm very honored to present for the first time Sector 6 Gaming. Would you take the opportunity to kind of introduce yourself, tell us what you do, and tell us as much about yourself as you can? Floor is open.
No. I mean, I'm not as smooth as these guys doing this, obviously. But yeah, my name's John. I run the Sector 6 YouTube channel. Mostly, well, pretty much exclusively doing content on Final Fantasy VII Remake at the minute. A fair bit of news stuff, but I'm kind of cranking out theory videos and that at the moment. Definitely hyped about where things are going for the future of Remake and things like that. So yeah, just having a good time with it, to be honest with you.
Mm.
Hey, that's great. I mean, thanks for being honest. You know, that's what we like.
Honestly. And honestly, it is an exciting time to be a Final Fantasy VII fan from all walks of life. So I think that's important.
Honestly, it's even a good time to be a Final Fantasy VII not fan. Like, if you're an anti-fan, like, there's just so much to talk about, like, with Final Fantasy VII.
Yeah, there's plenty of debate about the subject at the moment, no matter which side of the fence you're on, really, is there?
100%. 100%. I wonder if that has anything to do with the new trailer that just came out.
I wonder. Probably not. It probably had to do with those whispers at the end, or the guy that's featured on the screen right now.
Maybe.
Well, okay, so let's go ahead and start with that, because I think that's the big news, and then we'll breach into the just perennial clusterfuck that is Zack's current status and Remake. So I'm gonna switch over to the Intergrade trailer, and we'll just play that in loop while you guys talk about it. Why don't you each tell me your response and your reaction to the what is called the final trailer for Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade, coming out June 10th of this year, exclusively on the PS5 for at least 6 months. And why don't we start with you, Sector 6?
I mean, yeah, I thought it was a really good trailer. It kind of hit you with everything in the last 30 seconds or so, didn't it? I mean, it was kind of it was just kind of showing off the visuals and everything like that, and then it just kind of gradually ramped itself up as it went on. And then by the end of it, you just kind of sat there a little bit confused about what you've just seen. Like, what was that in Yuffie's eye? What is it?
Yeah, that's definitely the ramp up is definitely how I felt about it too.
That
I was like,
that eye thing. I mean, I think it's socially fascinating how much the internet has gaslit itself over that eye reflection. It is.
It's like when you stare at the clouds, isn't it? You see what you want to see in a lot of instances.
Yeah, it's like this very. It's the weak anthropic principle. I mean, we're pattern seekers for sure, and
Yes.
this is definitely some severe apophenia that we're all dealing with. How about you, Vyzz?
At first, I was afraid to watch it because of spoilers so close to release. For myself, I've abstained from watching the final trailer for the base game, and I'm so glad I did not watch it because it was so full of spoilers. But I've been told after some conversations that this trailer is not as spoilery and is more about hype and stuff. So I thought, well, we will talk about this today. And if I want to be on a podcast, I probably should watch this thing. So I did, and I think I don't regret it because it's awesome.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, there's lots and lots to talk about, especially the eye.
Mm,
And not just the eye, but the whole scene at the end. There's more to it than it seems.
yeah.
Okay. I will let Sleepezi answer his reaction, and then I'll give my own. But then we're going back to that eye.
Okay. Well,
Okay.
that's no problem. Yeah, I had just finished releasing my video, and that was sort of a rush of time and like all this other stuff, just getting it up and everything like that. And that I knew that this trailer was, or something Final Fantasy VII Intergrade related, was going to be out because of the announcement of the news. So when it came down to actually watching the trailer, I would say that I wasn't really 100% surprised about anything that I saw. Like, Nero was definitely the highlight for me, in the way that it's just further pushing that line of Dirges Cerberus inclusion. And not to get like too far into it, but the pitch that I had made in the video essentially is that the story beats of Dirge Cerberus are being played out in Intergrade. And I think after seeing Nero and a lot of the other observations made in that video, it seems way more likely that that's still happening. It's just not. There was some other stuff in there that I wasn't expecting, like the Yuffie scene in particular. But I think overall, and you know what my favorite part of it was, is the Scarlet stuff. I think the Scarlet stuff was the highlight for me because I really enjoy the character of her, and to see more of her was just nice. Anything else that happens from this is great. I will say, on the same page as Vyzz, is that I saw a lot of people talking to me about how spoiler heavy the trailer was. And I very intentionally as well did not watch a single trailer for Final Fantasy VII Remake before it came out, because by that point I was a fan, not a content creator. I was just wanting to see what came after that for myself. But now that I am currently making videos, like, it's sort of a part of the job to try and be as informed as possible. If I had the choice, I probably wouldn't have watched it, if I'm going to be completely honest. But
Yeah, same.
I do think that what I did see wasn't the be all end all of the story either. So I was like a little like, like, I'm not really, I don't really feel comfortable watching this. But at the same time, uh I was really surprised that they gave us so much without giving away everything. And that's, I think, was like the tipping point for me. So yeah. So
Yeah.
I genuinely sort of, I want to say, like, it was a bittersweet trailer overall for me. So
I'm pretty much on the same page as you right now with that feeling. It shows a little bit too much for my personal taste, but in the end, it doesn't really reveal major plot points and twists and stuff. More like reveals who will be there,
Yeah.
not really that
Yeah.
much.
And it reveals
So
how long the Intergrade. Well, what it reveals is that intermission
It's
is
pretty long, yeah.
longer than we expected, and
I already anticipated that myself. If I'm going to be frank, it really didn't seem like
yeah,
what they were showing was all that there was. And I think you and I, Clark, had plenty of
yeah,
conversation when that first trailer had dropped, where it's like, there's just
no way.
that you could have 2 chapters for this game, which it's still the case, I think.
Yeah.
It's still 2 chapters, but there's no way that you're going to be able to highlight um the Deepground segment and the Avalanche segment and the Shinra HQ stuff without making this much bigger than people are thinking. And that was the tipping point, where it was like, okay, the only way that they're going to be able to do this is that if they make it like way bigger than people are thinking. So when we saw more, I was like, well, yeah, like,
I would have liked that to be a little bit more of a pleasant surprise, but at the same time, I'm fully aware they need to sell this. Like, So,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's showing the length of something, like the value of something, is a pretty solid marketing move. But I'm with you guys too. In terms of lore and like reveals, I do not think that we got enough information for there not to be like just plenty of good reveals and plenty of fun reveals. I think there's plenty of that left. And most of that will probably come from Damon Mills's Twitter profile.
Yes.
He is the voice actor of Vyzz, who's eventually, I think, going to get in trouble for saying too much. But yeah, I think it was just right in terms of lore, but maybe in terms of tipping the hand of how long the content is, I would have liked it to be a little less, so that it was, yeah.
I don't think that you know what? Okay, so if I'm gonna be honest, the first trailer is the beginning, right? This trailer is the middle. I don't think we've seen any of the end. I don't think we've seen anything ramping up to the final like bit. I think what we saw at the very end of the trailer is just the beginning of the last half of the game.
Okay.
Last third, yeah.
Last third, yeah.
I think, yeah. I think there's still 12 hours of content after. I'm just kidding.
Well, here's the thing to be excited about for me still is that we just saw Nero, we saw Scarlet, we know like that there's a drill boss fight, we saw Deepground, and Platefall too. My question is, what on earth could possibly be in that last third of the game, other than like the obvious of like maybe Shinra HQ? But like, if they're dropping Nero bombs now, like what? And they've dropped the Vyzz bomb before. Like those are big plays hand wise. I think that they're saving something for the last.
I do too, and I think, I mean,
you know what they want us to think?
Yeah,
that it's going to be Genesis. That's what they're hoping. That's what they're trying to build up and get everyone hyped about.
I think so. I personally think that it's not only okay. So like starting from
whether it is him or not, that's the question. Or that's what we want us talking about.
Yeah. I definitely think that he's going to be the absolute final thing. Like I think he's going to be the final thing. I think we're going to get something in between that too. That's less of like, because you don't want to drop like your secret ending trailer in like, which is sort of how I feel like the Genesis reveal would be. You wouldn't drop that in a trailer, but you also wouldn't necessarily hint at it in whatever else comes before this. So whatever we do see, I think, is going to be like another Deepground member or something to that effect.
I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure that what we're. I feel like the end thing, the secret ending, will be the bridge between part 1 and 2. That's what I think the secret end thing. If there is a secret end thing, which I feel pretty confident that there is. I definitely think that we're gonna see some Genesis something. I don't know if it's gonna have lore implications moving forward. It's anybody's guess at this point. I do think though that we are gonna see some events after Platefall that answer certain things about certain characters, like Jesse's gloves. And
Biggs.
and
Sure.
yeah, Biggs' alive body and Jesse's dead body and where they go, so and maybe something involving a certain blonde president, that just appeared on screen.
Yep.
So I think that for sure. So okay, I know you have more to say on that, and you definitely will get your chance, all of you. So let's just talk about the eye. Vyzz, do you want to set up the eye thing, what the eye is and what we're talking about and what you think it is?
Me, I didn't. That there was a like a glitch in the matrix. I didn't understand my name. Was it my name?
Vyzzuvazzadth is your given.
No, I think so. I think somebody else said a word and drowned you out or something.
Oh, okay.
Anyway,
well, I want to know what the eye is.
Yeah, the eye of the storm.
Oh God.
I am Superman. Go on.
No, the thing is, I was kind of a little bit primed for this because of a stupid thumbnail on YouTube.
Uh-huh.
But I zoomed in, tried to actually see what the exact surroundings are. So it really does look, it's 100% platefall because of the fires and
Right.
the fire remnants that blow into Yuffie's face, and to see it. But what edge is it exactly, and what's that weird shadow? At first, I thought I saw a ponytail, but it was just like some light effects that played tricks. So it is something else. Doesn't look like Sonon, and it's someone at the edge of something. And do you all remember where else we see somebody looking over platefall
Kate.
at the edge of something?
Mm-hmm.
Yep, Kate Sith. And if you look really closely, it really could be Kate Sith on the ground, kneeling from behind.
I don't know who this Kate Sith that you're talking about is, but I
Catchy!
do think that Ketchi might be in that
Maybe.
picture.
I want to make a parallel here because I think it's important to note. So that is a Deepground element to a degree in terms of like a plot. Like Yuffie and Kate Sith showing up together wouldn't necessarily be that strange.
Yeah, exactly.
There's actually a couple things that I wasn't really able, I couldn't mention because the video was already like insanely long. But Rufus and Kate Sith definitely have a closer relationship, like than most people might think in terms of like the parallels between them, in terms of like connections and like compilation and stuff. So I wouldn't be surprised if Kate Sith has some connection to some Avalanche activity as well, or just Rufus shenanigans with like the bigger pieces at play. I genuinely will say though, I don't see anything in that.
Yeah.
I agree with what you said, Vyzz, which is my first impression was that looks like a Jesse ponytail.
Yeah,
I
but it's this light dot that
Yeah, that separates them.
goes into the way. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think my impression of that overall, I hate this kind of stuff in trailers. I'm gonna be completely honest. This is my least favorite subject to ever talk about. It was my least favorite subject to talk about in the original game or in the base of game of Remake with the nebula.
Yeah.
That was these are things that are like Rorschach tests. Like, what do you see in this? And from all of my time looking at stuff like this for trailers or anything like that, I just never, I like everything anyone's ever said to me about it, or any trailer, any sort of thing like this, it's always been wrong. And I literally cannot shake, like it's a bad taste in my mouth to see this kind of stuff, if I'm going to be honest. I do not, I think it's not the fault of the director or anybody who chose to do that shot, because the importance is to see just like, the flames in her eyes and like to
And the
know that
feeling, yeah.
there's
The
an emotion
emotion.
happening here. You know what I do, and I will say this because I don't plan on making any sort of like bigger video. Who knows? In between now and Intergrade, but for the sake of discussion, the scene reminds me of something that I've seen before, and that is when Cloud is watching Zack's death in
Right.
Crisis Core.
Right.
That's something that I think
Oh.
is very similar going on here.
It's thematically everything, like the framing. It's
Yes, the blood on the face is the
Yeah.
same.
Mm.
It's all like and the screaming into the sky, that's very similar. So I think that looking in the pupil of a character's eye and looking at the Rorschach test is one thing. I think looking at the parallels between events here is where the real money is. So I would just say this is not I do think that if it would be anything, it would be Kate Sith or like a pile of rubble which just crushed
Pile
some
of rubble, yeah.
a pile of rubble that crushed somebody or something. Something happened. Um, and Kate Sith being in Deepground doesn't seem like the weirdest thing because Kate Sith had interactions with Nero, had interactions with Yuffie. They worked in the WRO together on the mission to infiltrate Midgar, which was taken over by Deepground. There's all sorts of stuff like that. I think Kate Sith is likely, regardless of whether or not this is that character. I will say that.
And I fully agree. And just my experience with it was that I was dramatically underslept, and I saw that there might be something in the eye, and hoped it was Kate Sith. Like that was what I was hoping it was. I didn't see it, but I was hoping it was Kate Sith because I was like, that makes a lot of sense. This is just like has been said already. This is DLC that is about DOC. So this is DOC DLC. It would make a lot of sense. We know that the timing lines up. So please be that. And then I will be honest, I looked at it and the first shape that I saw made me close my mouth because I didn't want to say out loud what I saw because I knew it was just pattern recognition. I saw Vincent. I still see Vincent when I look there. And I'm like, oh, great.
I'm
How?
So I had no idea. And I was like, I just see Vincent's face. And then that long bit of hair that looks like Jesse's hair.
Definitely.
Yeah. And I see it. And then I see like his,
I know what you mean. Yeah.
his black, I see this black cloak. I see it and I'm like, okay, well, my mind's playing tricks on me. So I erased it from my memory and thought I was going crazy and underslept. I immediately go on the internet and see that a bunch of people saw it. And I was like, okay, well, at least, I am not that crazy.
Froggy D, you're right. It's Billy Bob.
And so when I look now, I don't see it anymore because I've just, I've looked at it enough. I just don't see that. I definitely don't see Kate Sith. I've compared the images that there's an image floating that compares them that at least shows though that the setting and the color scheming is pretty right. Like, it's pretty much that area and so it looks similar to where we see Kate Sith and that black figure could be some warped Kate Sith. But I
sent you an image. So you can compare. It's pretty accurate.
I'm just saying where the boots are what are throwing me there. If it's from a side
No, that's the image I've been looking at, Vyzz. I don't see it.
Oh, I see. Okay.
I don't see it at all. I see.
Ignore the character in the middle and look at the ground.
It's the white part that just doesn't fit for me. Like it's just
which white part?
The part that most people are saying his face. Yeah.
You don't see the face. You see him from behind.
Right, but I don't see any of his tail. I don't see any of that. So, that's just me. I just do not. Yeah. I don't see it. But it looks like the right setting. Like it looks like, the red and all that stuff. I mean, I could totally see that being where they are, and it makes sense from a lore perspective.
Let me clarify too. My point here is that I don't like if somebody ends up being right about what this is. That's fine too.
Yeah.
Like this is more of a personal like angle for me that I just like. It's kind of like the other subject that we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just have very little to contribute to that kind of environment in terms of like where I've spent.
It's so speculative.
It feels so vague.
Yeah.
That I think maybe other people see like something that I just don't, and that's also totally fine. So whether people are right or wrong is not necessarily like my perspective on it. I would prefer the people who call their shots to get the shots that they're calling, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I want somebody to be right about this and have that victory. Absolutely.
And also, I want Kate Sith in this part of the game.
Yeah, me too.
His involvement would explain a lot of things. I would say. Sorry, you were going to say something.
No worries. if this is Kate Sith or Catchy, I would be very delighted because his cameo in the base game is so strange, weird, and out of place, and the
Mhm.
DLC would give so much
It would
context
add
to this
context.
experience.
Yeah,
Definitely.
Yes.
absolutely. Yeah.
It's like the Shinra, President Shinra being thrown out the window. It's like, okay, what happened here?
Yeah, that too. Yeah.
Like, please, like some sort of elaboration because we're like, I think it's like people might refer to that as a similar thing to like finding the president with a sword through his chest, right?
Mm,
The base game that has pretty clear implication of like what happened, right? There's blood everywhere. You go into the office and the president's dead.
yeah.
It's Sephiroth's sword. It's Sephiroth, right? In this, it's too out of place. Through a window, dangling off the ledge, like what like transpired here seems so weird and like almost like a missing piece of a story, sort of like the Kate Sith thing, where it's like,
Yeah.
um,
Because it doesn't really have anything to do with Sephiroth either. It's just out of left field, kind of.
I
A real hole in the story, as you said. Yeah,
I
gaping hole.
I would say that for people who are wondering why he would show up at all is that there's actually some like I okay, so in the video I just made there's a ton of background that I try and give the context to for Rufus's involvement with Avalanche. And also maybe the reason why like Wu Tai is even in Midgar or has a relationship um with Avalanche, Wu-Tai and Avalanche have a relationship to each other. It might be Rufus. The other thing that is worth mentioning, and I only briefly discuss that Kate Sith might be showing up in Deepground, but Rufus in Before Crisis actually knows who Kate Sith is very early on. And he actually makes a note. He's like, like are you're able to like go into like places and sneak around and gather intel, and then he says, I'll remember that. I'll remember that you can do this for me like
Mm,
later on. So the point that I'm making is that that is directly mirrored in, and also to keep in mind for context is Before Crisis set up a couple of little things um, for Dirge of Cerberus. They set up Azul the Cerulean, and this is only just because the development sort of fit in to like allow them to shed some light on certain connections to other compilation games, which a lot of them weren't able to do effectively. So, but the thing about that is that in Dirge of Cerberus, Kate Sith, who is Reeve, is in charge of the WRO, and Rufus is funding the WRO. So all of that activity is also linked to Rufus, and also in the context of Remake, Rufus, like, or I guess in Before Crisis and probably Remake, Rufus is the not only the intel guy um for Avalanche, he's also the funder of
mm,
their endeavors. So it's it the likelihood of reoccurring elements like that in this game are so high, and with that one piece with Kate Sith being so disjointed from like the plot, as Vyzz said, like I would say that like he is actually an extremely likely person to show up. So
mm.
What do
That's
you
for
think,
sure.
Sector 6?
So for me, I'm not really seeing anything in the eye other than what I'm going to assume is platefall, because it's the only scene that could fit that kind of scenario that happens in Remake, I think.
Yeah.
What I'd guess is like the emotional thing. I'm going to guess that she's reacting like that potentially because the team that we're seeing on the screen now, like the Avalanche team, they get caught up in platefall somehow. I'm not sure how that'd happen. But like, maybe they don't get out, or maybe one or two of the members don't get out, or something like that. I think we will definitely see Kate Sith in the DLC for sure, because it would definitely make sense to, flesh out that bit of the story and give a bit of an explanation as to why we see Kate Sith in Remake, or because we shouldn't really see Kate Sith until later on.
Absolutely. I mean, it felt almost like it felt almost like such a needless cameo that it was meant only to like pull us along, and it was irritating. It was really irritating to people that had never played the original too. Like it was the most irritating scene to yeah. And so
sorry.
no, you're yeah, I think you're dead on. I hope I really hope that I would have been fine if this ended up being an entirely Kate Sith DLC, to be totally cool. I was that desperate for like some context of that scene. Yeah.
Well, I think even on that note, right? Though, is that you're absolutely right. Is that this does feel like it would be the perfect place for that. Like everything that's happening could just very easily be here's Kate Sith the game, But the fact that Yuffie is specifically in it is such an interesting choice. I don't think anybody was expecting Yuffie DLC. Like people were expecting something else, like something else entirely. So it's all pretty funny how connected those pieces become, though, just through that one character, which is kind of interesting. It can connect to Kate Sith, it can connect to Deepground, it can connect to all these things that
In terms of what you said about her feeling, her grief, and all that too, like the obvious answer does seem to be her grieving Sonon, but I think I would not be at all surprised if she is also upset that literally Avalanche got crushed. Like
those characters.
Neo Nelly, and Billy Albob, and
Axel Rose,
Finpolk are all dead. After teaching you the advanced Fort Condor missions and getting you that Phoenix materia, he's now dead. That child is dead. So I think this might be a chance for them to redeem the tragedy of Platefall, because I think a lot of people were a little underwhelmed.
I definitely was.
Yeah, I know. I know that's something that you've said in some of your videos, Sector 6, which, by the way, I will be providing links on my YouTube channel, but if you guys have the chance to go check out Sector 6's YouTube channel and subscribing right now, I'll put the link in chat. But yeah, there was not enough tragedy for Platefall, and this would be a really good opportunity to kind of highlight how impactful that was. So
it makes me think as well, what else throughout Remake is going to get fleshed out, because it seems like they are going in and filling out like a lot of the holes that people, a lot of the issues that people had with this DLC. So it does make me think what else we're going to get.
That's a good point. And guys, what else are we going to get?
DLC or the rest of the games?
What other holes are we gonna get filled by the DLC? I think.
What other holes are there? Yeah, the Biggs part for sure. Biggs Jesse's glove. The stuff on floor 70, as mentioned before. Why the president is just tossed out there, and why the avalanche chopper or helicopter comes back again the second time for friendlies. And Kate Sith, and what else is there?
I would
Wedge.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that would be it. Well, and here's the thing about that, right? Is that I mentioned this in the video. I don't know if I need to repeat it, but he's in Sector 5 by the time that all of that stuff is going down with the Cloud's infiltration of like Shinra HQ. And I do make a connection that the Avalanche HQ base might be actually located in Sector 5. So having that, like, okay, so this is a segue into Clark's question, but I genuinely think we're going to get more than just Yuffie cutscenes. I think we're going to be getting cutscenes added to the overall game. I think that's what Intergrade is. I think Intergrade is
I genuinely hope so, yeah.
I think it's, again, going back to the idea of like how much of this story can you actually tell in this amount of time? And I don't think that they just have the room to do it. I still don't think that it's possible that they made like this other separate little pocket of game to just explain everything. I think what Intergrade is supposed to be is not only the side by side of like the stories. It's like, oh, this is happening while this is happening. I think the point is to almost like, because there's been like a lot of like conversation with Nomura about what the DLC is, and that they don't want to
Yeah.
make more DLC. They just want to focus on the original game. I genuinely think that most of what this is stuff that they were already considering putting in the game and just
Yeah,
Yeah.
most likely. Yeah.
so I think what we're really going to see is that the DLC and remake are one story in Intergrade. They're not separated things. I think they will be played separately. I think like you will play the Yuffie chapter separately from the main game, but when you play the main game again, you'll get like additional pieces of a story. I think if anybody is familiar with like being a Kingdom Hearts fan, this is something that Final Mix does all the time is
Yeah.
that they'll add more scenes, they will add like more bosses, they will add like secret cutscenes and shit like that. This is like one for one. And if anybody isn't familiar with just growing up experiencing those games, as well as the compilation to a degree in similarity, is that they all do this. They make DLC, they make mobile games, they make fucking spin-off games. I hope they do less of that with this series because it really doesn't need that
Jeez.
much of that.
Yeah.
Especially to the degree that Kingdom Hearts does,
Oh,
which is such a put off, by the way. I will be honest that like I do not like spreading out your media. So what Nomura said about the game, I think is the best way to do it. Just keep this to this one game, this one re-release. Intergrade is the final mix of remake. Give us more cutscenes, fill the holes. Kate Sith, Shinra HQ, who these characters are, like is super important to me. Like I really don't want to be in a DLC with Sonnen or these other characters and not feel like it, because then you're just weirdly creating this situation of like from like the original game, people were like, we know who Biggs, Wedge, and Jesse are. But the way that they do those characters in remake and why it's so cool is because we really get to know who those characters are. But that's a huge amount of the appeal for me for remake is
yeah.
that you get to spend time with characters um,
Yes, definitely.
and see them like interact with each other. I would hate to get Sonnen, Nelly, Al, Finn, or whoever the fuck they are. I just say like I would be really upset that they would just introduce these characters without giving them a beginning, middle, and end story.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to see them necessarily go forward. Like they can go forward and it'll be fine. But I really, if this is it for them, then there needs to be an arc. And again, that's a lot to ask for DLC. So just extra cutscenes would make that so much easier. So
We've already kind of started that kind of crossover between the two. I mean, look at the Vyzz fight being implemented into the, like the training arena, like the simulated combat.
Yeah.
They're already doing it. So, yeah, I agree.
I'm extremely excited about that, by the way. I am
If they
unreasonably assigned. Just for the pure difficulty of the fight, I am very excited about that.
Oh yeah, for sure. His ultimate or strong attack there looks awesome.
6,500 damage to Aerith, and so yeah, I mean that's a pretty serious attack.
I do want to ask because I can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm gonna look it up right now because I think that one thing that was pointed out, I guess he does use both of his swords. He only uses the one sword for the special though, right?
For that
Yeah, the
attack,
special is
yeah.
just one, yeah.
I wonder. First of all, he's got to be using the heaven sword, right? Because he sends the players up in the
To
air.
heaven, yeah.
But the thing that I made me think about that attack is that in the DOC online multiplayer, he is fighting with a handicap or is said to might want to fight with a handicap.
Mhm.
I'm thinking that what would be a really cool thing to do for the like the increments of the fight is to have him like be like going easy on the party, and as you fight him, sort of
Yeah.
like how Sephiroth in Kingdom Hearts is like walking around and like just kind of toying with the character. Um and then like as you get his health bar lower, he starts doing more and more and more stuff. I would love to see that with Vyzz. That would
Hmm.
be a super fun thing to do.
I
And
wonder if he's the only VR character, the new
Yes.
one.
That's a good point. Look at that.
I
I think
sure hope not.
Could we see some of the other Sviets? You never know.
Oh, dude, a Sviet boss run.
Yeah, like a 2-on,
Yeah.
like a 3-on-3 or something like that.
If there's another Sviet, I don't see why there wouldn't. Like, if it's not just Nero and Vyzz, which I don't think is going to be the case, I think they should just make a literal section of the battle simulator where it's just like fight them all. That would be.
Crazy.
Oh my god.
It's all I'd be doing. It's all I'd be doing for a week. Yeah, just get speed runs.
Rosso in Remake. I would love Rosso in Remake too. You know what? Nero showed up. Who the fuck knows, dude?
Rosso is probably the least likely in my mind, but for lore reasons. But yeah, at this point, who knows? What do you think about the purple eyes?
That's insane.
Want to explain that to the audience?
So Nero in DOC has red eyes that with like a cat-like pupil. In his final moments in Dirge of Cerberus, he becomes like this shadowy like figure, and his eyes glow purple. And then he takes Vyzz and becomes the Omega Vyzz, essentially. In Remake, his eyes are just straight up purple, and I'm a big fan of those colors. If nobody knows that already. But the thing about that's really odd is that the only other character with purple eyes is Genova in the game. And I think if I were to be more on the speculative side of things, which I'm mostly known for, is that I think is bridging the concepts of stagnant live stream a bit.
I was about to say that, yeah. Because
Vyzz
Vyzz is only fed pure Mako, pure live stream, and does Nero the opposite, it seems. He's brimming with stagnant live stream, which stems from Genova,
we can
as far
talk
as
about
I can
Genesis genes now, can't we? This is lore relevant now. This is Remake relevant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was actually a question posed about Nero. That
I would love to talk about anything DOC.
Yeah, and it was essentially like why would Nero bother fighting Sonon and Yuffie anyways? And that was from Phantom Valentine, and it appears he can't control it. In the Japanese trailer, he says, "I can't hold it in."
Well,
I should watch that. I haven't watched that yet.
We should watch that now. Do it live.
I don't have if somebody has a link for the one with subtitles, that would be great.
I will say,
I've still not seen that myself yet.
I will say that the whole concept of not Genesis, Nero is that he doesn't have control over the power that he has. Like, he has very little control over all of those things. That's like, and it seeps out of him. That's why he wears the straps on his body, is because like literally like stagnant live stream is just pouring out of this dude.
And in this video,
so like the restriction that he is in is for comfortability, not only because he's always been imprisoned, but you even see it in especially in the DOC multiplayer. You see it.
Because he's on that stone kind of tablet, isn't it?
Yeah, he's literally chained up, but like exploding with like these dark pulses that like So all of the shit happening in like this is very typical Nero stuff.
Okay, so Gene just posted it, but it's the Birds of Play Japanese trailer differences video, which I can't repost that here. Unfortunately, I want you guys to all go. I don't want to take views from them for a variety of reasons. So I would in fact rather you guys all go check that out later and separate. And I will post a link to it too on the YouTube video when I upload it.
Isn't this video from the first Intergrade trailer, not the second one with Nero? Because this link leads me to the first Intergrade.
Oh, it does. Oh, it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, Gene, no big deal. Okay, moving on. Sorry, nailed it.
I don't even know that there was any other version of the final trailer that I've seen with subtitles. I will say
I haven't seen one either. Yeah.
Yeah, so
I've seen the transcript, but yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, then there was never any other video that we're gonna get pulled up other than that one. But
well, and even I think there might be a new Birds of Prey one too, but again, the same kind of issue. And if so, I will definitely put a link in the YouTube video when I upload the bot.
I will say everybody should go check out Birds of Play because they are very, very
so
good.
Cool. Yeah. And Vyzz too will always when he uploads stuff, he always makes sure to get pretty accurate translations involved, and he uses DeepL a lot for machine learning translations, which can give a really good perspective too.
DeepL is really great. Yeah.
Yeah, there's just no reason not to get as many translations as possible when you're looking at this stuff.
Yep.
Well, to fill up negative space in the conversation, I'm obviously really excited for Intergrade and everything that it has to do. I will say that personally, I was probably most excited to see Scarlet too, just because I think that I was kind of expecting everything else. To be totally honest, like I thought it was either going to go in the Scarlet route or in the way crazy Deepground route, and somehow it did both. And so I was excited that the 1-2 punch of it all was really, it just super exciting. And as far as additional content too with this, I'm excited that there is a comprehensive mini game because that felt missing from Remake. The only real mini game worth anything was not worth much, and it was kind of the darts, and not the darts weren't fun. I love the dance scene, but it was less mini game and more just press these buttons here.
Yeah.
And then
probably the most entertaining was like the VR battles. But once they were done, they're done, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I've certainly spent the most time doing VR battles, but those don't quite feel mini game. No. We never had that, like the box crushing game. Like the bike was okay. Actually,
bike was cool.
Yeah, it was cool the first time, and then I hated it. So it's good that we get like a classic. Yeah. Like, hey, welcome to Final Fantasy. We got mini games for days,
It looks like an auto chess kind of game as well.
It does. It does. It looks like very expansive. I don't personally have a lot of interest in that kind of game, so I will play it in order to get the Phoenix materia or whatever it is that we get from it.
Give us the prizes.
Do you guys?
You're gonna get a G report, by the way.
Yeah, for sure.
I hope so. I'm excited that they're back. What do you guys think it means in terms of Fort Condor as a location moving forward? Floor is open.
Somewhere, I think we'll still see Fort Condor. Yes, I don't think, obviously, we're not going to play the mini game there that we previously did. That's going to be dropped out, and it's going to change the way that the story kind of pans out at Fort Condor, but I definitely feel like it will be left in there as a location. I mean, you pick up one of the huge materia from there, things like that. So it's an important place. I think it sets the tone for Shinra as well. You know, like we know that they're a bad company from being in Midgar, but then once you get outside, you kind of see that they're not only doing things in Midgar, but they're influencing other parts of the world, well, all of the world as well, and it really helps with building Shinra up.
I can also see Yuffie making her first appearance in part 2
Yes.
there, instead of just the woods, maybe even there, because now there's a connection between Yuffie and Fort Condor.
Maybe even some Wutai presence as well.
Or that, yeah, for sure.
I was gonna say it would be maybe a better place to elaborate on maybe some of like the Avalanche Wutai Shinra activity, like maybe like some level of like conflict or just mention of that stuff. If you're taking away like the game of it from that area, I would only see like them filling it up with something new.
Yes, exactly.
Or expansion into like that, and then having like a boss fight maybe lead to like, you know, the Phoenix, which would be sick. Like this, like, you know, the build up to that. Anyway, yeah, I think that would be a perfect place for something like that. It's gonna be interesting just seeing how this game, with the comment on like the environment that Nomura made and everything like that, it seems pretty deliberate that they're gonna be making the game that people want to be making. I guess they want them to be making, which is like more of an open thing. That will be interesting to see how that all plays out.
And that's a good point. That leads me to the next area, which during the First Soldier interview or live stream, Nomura provided what was referred to as the voice of heaven. And so he was a disembodied voice during that chat.
Yeah.
And one of the things that he said was that he described it was actually a very funny, like super Nomura style thing that he did, where he wanted to talk about part 2, but he like made a phone call and it turned into a debacle where he wasn't like allowed to talk about it and stuff like that. And but he did just say, it's going great. Cloud is in nature a lot, and it's a very different environment. And I think that is super cool, that he kind of made that a very direct, like, hey, you guys are kind of worried about the world map, I bet. Well, there's going to be some nature. And I don't know what that means, but you can tell he's excited about how that's implemented. And I am too.
I do agree. Yeah, I think he was definitely. I think that the clearance that he was trying to get is to give people peace of mind of what they should be expecting. So the settlement for him was like, you're going to be seeing a lot of nature. I think he's trying to point to the news that he cannot say without saying it. You know.
Yeah.
So I am personally, after I heard that, I was like, I want a bigger, more open game after this. Midgar felt very, very good, and I think it was good the way that they told that story.
Yeah.
But I would love to just be able to go wherever like I want and just start to explore the world a little bit more. And I don't know how much of that is going to be, good storytelling in the way that, people might be expecting from the part 1, but
I think that one of the complaints about part 1 is often that there wasn't enough free exploration of Midgar, and I kind of feel the opposite. Like I feel like part of what Midgar was supposed to feel like is the trains element, like you're on a rail, like you're trapped. Midgar is a trap for the people in the slums. Like that's the whole concept of all of that. It's like it's this place that you get stuck. It's very oppressive. And so when you first hit the world map and the music starts, like that feeling itself is something that I very much hope they expand upon greatly. And so I'm cautiously optimistic. There are a lot. I mean, whatever they do, they're gonna have to do something really either new, like that kind of hasn't been done before with that, or they're gonna have to, rein in the freedom a little bit and make it something kind of akin to zones.
Yeah.
And so I hope I hope whatever it is works, but that's really all I can do. I can just tell that Nomura is excited about it, and he was also very
Yeah.
excited. I was also very excited to say that part 2 begins after Intergrade. He didn't say
That one is interesting, yeah.
he didn't say part 1. He didn't say intermission. He said Intergrade. And as has been brought up, and I certainly see the merit of this argument, it could just be that that's what part 1 means now to him. He just means, hey, this is what we're calling part 1 is Intergrade. So it could mean absolutely nothing. But given the way that he described why he chose the term Intergrade for the title in the initial interview when this was released in February, he said, I chose it because it represents a midpoint between part 1 and part 2. Like, he actually chose that title to represent that. And if he just meant technologically, sure, that's possible. But I got the sense, like, not to infer too much context, but he was trying to communicate that as well. And then he was trying to communicate that clearly here too. So I think what that alludes to is the secret ending that a lot of us are expecting from this, him at this point.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, definitely.
I don't know.
Although, is the secret ending in the PS5 version of the game or in the DLC? That's the question. Probably not in the DLC because this would be gated, so wouldn't be well received, I guess.
The only thing is though is that if they do something that is gated behind the PS5. I mean, and it seems like they kind of or behind DLC is that either way, whatever they reveal has to be something that isn't necessary. It's something that if you just played part 1 and played part 2, you'll still understand part 2.
Exactly.
But because no matter how you slice it, this is gated behind the hardest to get console like in history. So,
Yeah.
which reminds me, do you guys all have PS5s?
No.
Oof.
I'm
I
still
managed to
software.
get one around a month ago.
I also have one. And this is only spurred on by the fact that Intergrade was announced.
Okay,
So
guys, that means that we better help out Sector 6 get one. And then
Yeah.
Ray Kaufman
What?
needs one also.
Well, this is it. If I don't get one, I'm just going to be living in your stream. So,
And you are welcome in it. You are
I would
welcome
be
in it.
100% honest. Like I think that like there is a joy for and I might only be speaking for myself. There is a joy that I have watching people enjoy these games. Like sometimes more than I have fun playing them myself.
I'm in the same boat sometimes too. Yeah.
I think it's super. I'm not trying to lessen the impact of PS5 exclusivity and availability. I think that like if you want something like that, you should be able to get it. And it sucks that a lot of people are having a difficulty doing that. But I will say, from my perspective, even if I hadn't gotten a PS5, I would be having the same amount of fun personally watching somebody experience this.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the reason why I I started making my content to begin with was based off of the fact that there was like such there's something in the air of like this, like the community growing around this game and like the mystery growing around this game. But if no one was interested in that, like I wouldn't have necessarily been that interested, I don't think. Like I might have wanted to talk about it personally, but the point was to express it to a larger group of people that were all wanting to find out the same things that I was trying to find out. So I think that sort of community around the game definitely makes this, and the hype around all the things happening makes this exciting to watch too. So
Well, I think that is a good time to pitch as a sales thing. I will I've taken time off. I've ordered IV bags, and you know, have ordered a nursing service. I will be streaming the moment that Intergrade is available for like a week straight. And I think Vyzz will definitely be streaming too, and so you can check us all out. But I'm with you on this. Like, I own Resident Evil 8, and I started to play it, and then I just stopped, and now I'm just watching Donkey play it, and it is infinitely more
By the
more
way, I
entertaining.
checked out that stream as well, and it is so good to see so many. It's just like nice to see other people's reactions to the game. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
any game, especially when it's like such a hyped up experience. So I genuinely think that I know that this is slightly going back, backtracking on the discussion, but one of the things that I what like from playing the PS5 and something that I'm not like I haven't played a lot of like modern games, except for Remake and maybe like Sekiro.
Mm-hmm.
Like those are like the big mentions, and I just got the PS5 and I wanted to know what it would do, so I got Demon Souls as well.
Right.
The load times on the PS5 make me very open-minded to a world map-ish type of game for Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think
Yeah.
it's almost like it's strange. It's like some sort of like witchcraft has gone into the system, because like Demon Souls was a slog to play on the PS3 because of the load times, but now when you die, you're just right back into the game, and it's like that seamless transition of like of game, I think, is something that would be really beneficial for a game like Remake specifically, and that's already being demonstrated a little bit with Intergrade. But they do mention that like if you want to see more of the features of the PS5 sort of realized, like that will be for part two. And I have my fingers crossed to a degree.
Yeah, I think I'm on the same page as you. And as for part two, I can only see bigger and more vast environments thanks to loading times, not constant spaces where you have to crawl or crouch through or
Yeah,
shimmy through.
exactly. Right. And
So
it's like that was the thing about the what is it? The stupid the warehouse. It's like we have to shimmy through, like we just like loaded up, and now I have to shimmy through this because we got to load like all the buildings for like the top plate, and it's just like
yeah,
what, like why not just be able to like run through all of it and not have to worry about any of that? Like that sounds so, I feel like as a developer you would really want to continue to like put, as soon as you find out that you don't have to have like loading times every single second and that you can load things faster, I think the very first thing you would want to do is open things up.
yes,
um Especially with a game that is almost begging for that to happen, just because of the way that the game sort of opens up at this point in the story. So I also think that there's an expectation, not for Final Fantasy VII, right, is like sometimes, most cases, regarded as one of the best games of all time. But a lot of Final Fantasy games push the limits to a certain degree of certain aspects. And I would think that after, now that seven is being split up into however many parts, probably five, you would think that what they would do is want to, in each iteration, push farther, and make it again a little bit more innovative, a little bit better, like each version. So I think, and take advantage of technology at the time, which is like exactly what Final Fantasy VII was doing when it first came out. So
Mhm.
I think it's important that it's not only a showcase for like, you know, the game that we know, but also a showcase of the technology that's being used to make it. So I don't know. It's a big open question, and that's very speculative, but I definitely see them trying to take advantage of that.
Well, for sure. In my
100%.
mind, it's 100% confirmed, at least in my head canon, that it will be not corridor after corridor after corridor, but really open, not open world, but open areas with which seamlessly connect. And there are enough narrower areas, for example, the mithril mines or the ship, the cargo ship, or then the rail tracks, the North Corel, that funnel you through a certain part until you reach the next town, city, open area, wood, forest, plains, what have you.
That would be so cool.
Yeah, let's hope.
Yeah,
I'm really
seriously.
excited. For me on that one though, I'm really excited with. Do you remember, like, I think it was a couple of months ago where they came out and they were talking about inspiration that they were taking from Horizon, and like Horizon,
Yes, yes.
beautiful, and yeah, I'm very excited about that.
Very linear game, very hallway heavy. Yes,
Yes,
very restricted
Extremely.
game.
Even worse than Final Fantasy 13.
Honestly,
Oof.
yes. And I've never heard such a solid truth ever spoken.
Yeah, the truest
The fact
word
that they
ever.
even said that is like, okay, we get it. Like, you can't just be like,
yeah,
you can't be like, oh man, like we were really heavily inspired by like the scariest game of all time, and then release the game and have it be like, I don't know, like a comedy. Like, you would be just be so confused. You can't market your. The point of saying this stuff is to generate excitement. It's like, I want to make a game similar to this. It's like, okay, make that open world game, make that game that you're pitching us to it as. But then again, Resident Evil 5 did something similar. Having a flashback to where like the director said, we try to make like the daylight scary. It's like, no, this is just an action. It's just an action game. I'm like, don't twist your words like that. So who knows? Maybe not. But
Yeah.
I would imagine that they have a little bit more sense than that. So
most likely, yeah. For up until now, I'm pretty sure they are able to fulfill most expectations.
yeah,
Even though it was very restrictive in this first part, but it makes sense lore-wise and location-wise because Midgard is an oppressive, restrictive area or city, as Baby Seal said before. So it wouldn't make sense to make everything completely open and open world. It would completely defeat the atmosphere. And the atmosphere is what will change according to Nomura, that the part 2 will have a completely different atmosphere, as he said.
Do you think that has something to do, and I think this would be a really, really smart thing to do, is that the introduction of blood in Intergrade, I think, is sort of allowing us to be like, the story is going to get a little heavier, like, as time goes on. And we kind of know maybe why that might be in the original game. But I think with that sort of, a lot of people, and this is a weird example, but like, just bear with me, is that in Toy Story 1, 2, and 3, like the audience for that game was a younger generation when it first came out. But by the time that the third iteration or the third, movie of Toy Story had come out, the Pixar was aware that the audience for this movie was now adults or in like just older. And so like they could discuss more stuff than just the like kids themes, right? Like they could go a little darker, a little bit more like intense and stuff like that. And I think one of the things that I see a very clear like line of in Remake is that they are sort of setting up like this, like we're like gonna do this all together, and we're gonna use the power of friendship. This is something I say in one of my other videos, but I think it's very relevant to what we're seeing with like the blood usage in Intergrade, is that it's all this power of friendship stuff. But I think the point of setting that up is to start getting more serious, and in a more, hopefully more impactful and more adult way, if I'm being honest. Like, I don't think that this game should ground itself just to like whimsical, I guess, aspect of
Can
this.
you imagine if they had the furnace scene from Toy Story in Kingdom Hearts instead of the Kingdom Hearts that we got? That would be
boss fight just took place
in that furnace. Oh my god, that
missed opportunity.
That is a huge missed opportunity. I want to take this opportunity to just we've had a very good viewership this whole video, and I haven't really addressed it. Thank you guys all for being here. We've had a pretty regularly over 70. That's a big deal. That means a lot to me. I really appreciate that. If you haven't had a chance, please at least follow. if you like what you're hearing. And feel free to subscribe, but no pressure. But what I would want you to subscribe to with all of my heart is each of our guests has a YouTube channel, and every little subscription helps motivate them to keep creating content. And I do have those links in my chat, and I will also have them on the VOD when they're up. Please take the time to be as generous as possible with these content creators so they can continue to create content. And I'm very excited for what all of them are creating moving forward. Any thoughts about Intergrade before we move on to the man of the hour? The man of the 2 hours.
I could say a few things that would lead to that topic, but I want to wait until we get
okay.
there.
We'll end with you then. The world ends with Vyzz.
There's one thing that I wonder is whether or not we're going to see these events that we see in Intermission, are they going to be framed as something that happened in the original continuity of Final Fantasy VII? Or are they going to be framed as something that's kind of come about due to this changing remake timeline? That's something that's kind of been playing on my mind a little bit.
Me too. And part of the reason is because the timing of this, everything we've seen in Intermission happens prior to the defeat of the Arbiters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm very interested.
Something to think about, especially because, and I don't want to upset anybody by saying this because I know that the conversation of Zack is a very tricky one to have. But I will say that there's a lot of parallel between what we're seeing in Intergrade with things that have happened with Yuffie and Zack Fair in the past, in compilation references and stuff like that. And I think if there were to be a character or a segue into those events, I do not think that it is that outside of the realm of possibility that whatever is going on with Zack's story, there is some Yuffie shenanigans involved with that as well. I just, in general, will say that, like, I think from what we've seen of Yuffie so far, I think they're setting up this character so well. Like, to just, this is what gets me, right? This is where I kind of feel, and I say this in my video, but I will say that the way that Yuffie's character is being framed in Intergrade with this sort of like, I want to do this for Wutai and restore Wutai honor, which is very similar to just her character just in the base game, is 100% being pushed in the direction of the same sort of refocusing that the party is doing at the end of Remake. So like everything is usually building up to that like moment where they want to challenge or fix destiny in some way or change fate, right? But that sort of revelation seems to be unfolding with Yuffie a fair bit, just with the idea of them of her like seeing all of this destruction and wanting to do something more than just restore Wutai. I think she's becoming aware of just the overall sort of arc of her arc is matching the party's arc is what I'm trying to say. So I think that she would also very well, like very perfectly fit into the party at this point too. I think she's in the right state of mind to come into that. But then the summary comes to mind that was also released alongside the first Intergrade trailer, and that troubles me and makes me think more Zack stuff will be happening. So that's pretty much all I have to say about the rest of Intergrade. I'm excited for it either way.
Me too. I'm very excited. And so I know we're already way in, and and I also know this is Sleepezy's favorite topic, and as a result, he may leave. Yeah. Zack. Okay, so we'll go ahead and switch this to Zack, and we'll have the Zack cutscenes here. Instead,
personally, completely aligns with the original lore. Just perfectly. Everything happening. Yep, there's Zack, just like the original game, back alive, as we saw in the original game. Whispers, same. Totally the same lore as the original.
I
one shot as in Crisis Core.
so
That's 100% right.
okay.
Zack lives.
So I will
twist.
say this is obviously the most divisive thing that happens in Remake. And this is the thing, by the way, that I see that people that are stoked on Remake think Remake's gonna be great, think it's good going forward, that even them are like, uh-oh. You know, Zack's alive. That's problematic. You know, it's one of those things that is unpopular even amongst the people that are very gung-ho. That's not to say that there aren't some people that are absolutely in Stoklahoma about Zack being alive. Like, it is very exciting that their favorite character, like Zack was their favorite character. There's a lot of Crisis Core fans that exist, and they are excited about this. You know, there's a bunch about this that, you know, divides the fan base right off the bat. And we can talk about that a little bit, but first I just want to establish that, can we all agree, because believe it or not, even in this day and age, can we all agree that the implication is heavily that Zack is still alive in part 2?
Certainly, yeah.
Okay.
That would be very, very strange if he wasn't.
Yeah. Okay. Because there are there are still people that are absolutely convinced that he just dies right after this.
I don't understand. I don't understand that. It's like you can't. You don't understand how big of a terrible decision that would be after what just happened. They've already put the chips on the table for him to be alive, and to just immediately backpedal out of that would be, it would, even if it is a mistake, by the way, him being alive, even if this is a terrible story decision, the less damaging thing to do at this point would be to not backtrack. Do not backtrack out of what you've established to your audience as being a thing to look forward to in the future titles of your game.
Sleepezi, are you under arrest?
I am. I'm sorry,
you
guys.
spoke out of line. They're getting busy.
Yeah, it's okay. I gotta go.
Unrelated.
Seriously, completely not. I don't even like the idea. Personally, I don't like the idea. This is why, and it's only because of how speculative this is. And I know me even saying, like, of course he's not going to do that. People are going to be like, well, why is it unlikely that? It's like, this is too open-ended to even describe. So like,
yeah, I mean, okay, I agree. So I do think that but what I don't want to do is I don't want to necessarily like dissuade that theory, right? Because there are people that I know that are convinced he's dead, that this is all you know, some other kind of misdirect. So to just establish why I personally think he's alive moving forward is that this is very expensive to show this scene, and it would be a massive misdirect, but Stamp is an obvious clue. And for those that don't know the context, just to set up context, Stamp is a character created by Tetsuya Nomura and introduced in Remake. And it's just a dog. It's just a mascot, and it is also the logo for Shinra's military. It is used in all of their propaganda, and it is used on, most importantly, the bag for Stamp's Champs. And Stamp's Champs are a chip bag that are present at about 18 different times during the main story of Remake. And on that bag is a beagle dog named Stamp. There's a theme song written around about him. It's one of the jukebox tracks, and he is very clearly a beagle in every sense of the word. In this scene only, right here coming up, we see a way over the top slowdown on the Stamp bag that shows that for some reason in this particular instance, Zack sees a bag that is no longer a beagle, but is in fact a terrier. And in this continuity, he's like, wait, was that all of them? And it's already going different. The whispers are there. He gets knocked down by a whisper explosion, and it leaves it open-ended as if he's alive. Okay? Then, so right off the bat, just most people walk away from that and say, okay, well, this is different. He's alive and this is different. They made a bunch of ham-fistedly obvious moves to tell us this is different. Then, alongside this scene, alongside the release of Remake, the original Ultimania was released. And in an interview with Nomura Nojima is released, and it asks specifically, in this, Zack seemingly has a different fate. What can you tell us about that? To which Nomura responds, well, that's part of the mystery, of the new mystery we're setting up for the story of Final Fantasy. And then Nojima replies with, hey, did you notice Stamp? So he's telling us where to look, okay? Why is Zack alive was the question. And to which Nomura answers, that's a mystery. And to which Nojima answers, look at Stamp. In July Famitsu, one of the questions asked is, Zack seemingly has a different fate this time. What's that about? And again, they don't confirm anything, but what they do say is, we're really excited moving forward with what we have to show you. And then in the beginning of the year and in the Materials Ultimania, one of the things that's said by a graphic designer was like, we're really excited by how much you all enjoy Zack's new fate. So at this point, it seems from a developer standpoint, they would all have to be lying, and the cost of that lie would irreparably damage fan trust in them. They would never recover if they pulled back on that. So if all of this was an extremely expensive, like they recorded a song, they had to pay an artist to make a song just for this character Stamp. So so he definitely, I think, has some kind of role moving forward. And the main thing that I won't do is say, hey, because I can't think of what that role is, that must mean he's dead. That is the most bizarre leap in logic. So
I will say that every single question in the chat right now, like, I hate this, which is definitely a question. And that doesn't make any sense or anything like that. This is exactly why I have an issue talking about this myself, is that everything that you've said out of your mouth so far, I completely agree with. I don't see, though, how this works out in anybody's favor. I do think that the only thing that I starts to become appealing about this idea is that the idea of the compilation being expanded on to a degree. This is the worst part of Remake for me, Sleepezi. I will say, from my standpoint, not only as a fan, but as like a theory crafter, quote unquote, like
same.
I can only wholeheartedly agree with that statement. But the idea that I see as a potential, right, is that one of the things that my video goes over is that every single part of the compilation seems to be getting some sort of elaboration. And I think the angle, and I don't know if I've ever stated this publicly or not, maybe on my own stream or something, but I think Nomura has been heavily involved in the compilation, like in some aspect or another. And I think, but they're all directed by different people, written by different people, not him necessarily, right? I think he has involvement with the writing of a couple.
He has writing and creative direction credits on all of it. All of it. It's Nojima that had absolutely no connection to Dirge of Cerberus. Yeah.
I think what the angle of Remake is, and I think I'm seeing it more and more in just the presentation in Remake of like, don't deny me, embrace me, and all these lines like scattered throughout. I think that's ultimately what the flower being crushed means as well at the beginning of Remake in general, is the flower gets stepped on and Aerith picks it up. I think that flower is sort of a representation. This is me just spilling out my own perspective of this, is the compilation. I think what ultimately happened with the compilation is that it ultimately did not do any good service to the original game. I think it created a lot of interesting avenues to look at the original game. I don't think it ultimately was successful in doing that. But I think knowing Nomura specifically, I think he has a very, very keen like sense of wanting to express the sort of development of art from an artist's perspective.
Sure.
And I think from what I'm seeing, every single change being made in terms of whether it's a nod or a compilation like addition, is that there's a really serious drive behind Remake to do service to these ideas, not for the sake of just retelling the story, but I think Nomura knows all of the people involved in each step of each of the compilation games. And I think because they did not ultimately do justice to the original game, or their visions weren't completely realized, which a lot of the compilation was like either rushed or couldn't tie up a lot of what it had introduced.
Right.
I think Nomura is sort of taking on the task of like looking at everyone's contribution to the game, to Final Fantasy VII Remake's world, and really trying to do all of their additions to that story justice. I really think that that's what's happening. I think he is 100% trying to elaborate on these ideas for the sake of artistry. I'm not saying that that's a good, necessarily a very good structure to give a story. I think that's the ultimate angle, though, for him. And I think one of the things that makes this so clear to me is that I think every single thing he's done so far has been a reference or an elaboration on prior work that he's done, or things that have happened in his career, or things like that with like the Yuzora thing I point to in Kingdom Hearts 3.
I point to that a lot too,
will not fucking like that I'm even bringing up Kingdom Hearts, but Yuzora is a very clear indication of the time that he spent making Final Fantasy 15 and then 13 Battle. Like, I think that's a very clear want for him to revisit something that he never got to finish. And I think Remake is the same thing. Absolute same thing.
And we're going to talk about that particular thing, Nomura and Nomura's like struggles with that on next episode with Philip Hartshorn.
I do want to very, very quickly just bring it back to the point so we can stay on track. But I do want to say that's what Zack Fair's living to me seems like. I think like that's the crisis core angle of the compilation that has not been fully realized. People think that I just talk about Genesis because it's like I like the character. I think Genesis represents an idea of what the compilation was supposed to accomplish. I think that's the ultimate purpose of the character's involvement. I'm not advocating for Nibelheim scene. I'm not advocating for that story being good.
You're not?
I'm advocating for the point of that these are ideas that are very clearly in Remake and very heavily influencing Remake. And Genesis heavily influences a lot of the background of those ideas. So I'm only saying that Zack Fair Living is an expansion on Crisis Core, like Intergrade, in my opinion, is also an expansion on DOC. I actually think DOC is being wrapped up in Intergrade.
Me
I
too,
don't
yeah.
think that we're going to be seeing more of it.
Other than in Ever Crisis.
People are on my
100%.
comment section are like, these are things that are not like these are just nods. It's like, no, these aren't nods. It's the story of Dirge of Cerberus being retold, because Dirge of Cerberus happens 3 years in the future, guys. Like, of course it's not gonna, like, this is the only part of the story that actually happens in the base game of Remake, the Deepground segment. They don't come out of Deepground at any other time in the original game. This is it. So, like, this is the only time to do this story, or to highlight DOC in any way. So, like, it's not a nod. It's just, here's the lore, here's that story, and then that's it. But Genesis has a direct effect on so much of the rest of what is being talked about in the main game of the story, that his inclusion doesn't feel that out of place for him to be introduced here and to be more, not a huge presence either. I'm not saying that either.
Yeah.
A bigger presence in the story, though, moving forward in Remake. I'm just so, I don't know how this Zack thing is going to work out, but that's the only angle that makes me present-minded about keeping an open mind.
Yeah, you're not in denial about it. Like, and so, okay, I want to give, so what I wanted to do with that, and I got us off on a tangent, I'm sorry, but I do want to establish that all of us are, here's why we think Zack is alive. Now, so what the topic of the podcast is what are they going to do with it? So Zack is alive. What are things that they can do with Zack? Which is, I think, in chat we have J21090. That's his main concern, or her main concern, their main concern. And I do want to give some opportunity to, like, actually talk about what are things that like him being alive, how are ways that he can tie into the narrative. And both Sector 6 Gaming and Vyzz through Cosmo Canyon Observatory very recently released videos on this exact topic. So I would like to give them the floor to tell us, what do you think Zack's role will be in part 2 and 3?
You want to go?
Oh, okay.
Go for it, Sector 6. I would, and then we can let Vyzz cogitate.
Oh, yeah, sure, yeah, go ahead.
So for me, like, initially with the whole Zack thing, I kind of felt like it was like an accidental thing, you know, something that Sephiroth and that the planet hadn't really kind of accounted for, and that it was possibly going to circle around in some way, shape, or form later on. But recently, one of the things that I've been kind of thinking of, is it possible that Zack surviving in the way that he has is kind of like a final roll of the dice by the Whispers and the planet to try and not so much keep the timeline in check, because they've already lost complete control of the timeline, but in some kind of way try and balance the live stream maybe in some way, because I do feel like it is looking like I don't think Zack has survived in the same continuity that Remake is taking part in. It is 100% a separate timeline from what it looks like. So I don't know whether or not something that Zack could do in that timeline to affect the live stream could maybe in some way have an effect on Remake's timeline and live stream. That's kind of where I've been going with it recently.
Interesting. So, and I remember that was my initial takeaway, is that what they're doing is they're setting up a spin-off game. You know that the Terrier timeline is. Somebody has said. I think Ali D said that it was possibly purgatory. I'm not terribly against that idea. And what's neat about the Avengers style, multiverse or this is purgatory, is that the spin-off game can have zero impact on the games on this game moving forward. Like we can still get our experience. I'm not entirely sure anymore. In fact, I don't think that's what they're doing. But we will get to that. But from all the information we have right now, it looks like that. Like it's almost presented like that. Like there's Pokemon Beagle and Pokemon Terrier. We're gonna get to play each of those games. That's kind of the way it looks. But I think and you touched upon what I would say at least 60 or 70% of the fandom thinks is going on. With the title, and there's some pretty good reasons to think that way. Vyzz, what are your thoughts?
Are you ready for a really long explanation
That's what I want. We're giving you the floor for the next hour and a half. Go.
Okay. I hope I can fit all in.
That's a short video for you.
So if I understood you correctly, Sector 6, that the remake happened in the live stream. Did I get this correctly?
So for me, what I'm thinking of is like you've got like the events that are going on in the Remake timeline, and I'm not 100% sure whether or not that's going on in the live stream or whether or not it's kind of like Sephiroth's gone back in time. I'm 100% lost on that one, if I'm being completely honest with you. But what I think has gone on then from there is that this kind of alternate timeline has been created with Zack by the planet as kind of like a holding pattern almost, some kind of way for the planet to protect itself. And because of the events of Zack's life, I mean, there's very few characters in the entirety of the compilation, I'd say, that you could compare to being a hero as much as Zack, being like a pure-hearted character. So the planet's kind of placed all its chips in that basket, basically. All its eggs in that basket.
Oh, I'm actually with you there. I just want to get things straight. So the thing about Sephiroth and live stream and multiple timelines, my current take is, unfortunately, I don't have the Sephiroth analysis out yet. It is a huge thing, and Intergrade and Intermission came in between. But I already brushed this topic on the 2-hour Aerith analysis. My whole conclusion about this thing is that Remake Part 1, until we defeat the Whispers, this is kind of going through the memory that is currently within the live stream. Kind of like we go back in our own memories, relive parts of that, how they were, but someone didn't like parts of those memories and wanted to change them. But I myself, I want my memories to keep it to stay intact, because this is what made my person. If an event changes in my past or in my memory, it will have a ripple effect and change my person, my current being. And this is why the planet wants to prevent any change that has this ripple effect through the Whispers, like Platefall or Reno dying or all of those things that they either want to prevent or want to preserve. So Sephiroth is the first one that starts changing things. We see it with the feather. We see it with the detour he puts Cloud through and brings back memories of him much earlier. And all this ripple effect is that the Whispers are trying to correct it. Aerith is probably also trying to correct certain things, but also change other things to prepare for a countermeasure towards Sephiroth, wants to keep changing things. And as we see in during the Whispers battle at the end against the Harbinger, we see flashes of the future, and it's not really the future, but those are also memories within the live stream, but in the future related to the events in Midgard. They happen later, but are still within the past of the real time, which is after the whole compilation, after Advent Children, after Dirge of Cerberus, and probably also after those 500 years, because we see Red 13 running through the valley
Yeah, so
500
it's got
years
to be after
later.
that as well.
And Sephiroth and also Red 13, they both allude to the planet is about to die. It's dying slowly. It's meeting its end. So, but because Sephiroth can't travel the cosmos with the live stream, he wasn't able to achieve his goal. The only thing he can do is go into the memories of the live stream, change stuff in the past to change the future, change circumstances, and allow him to then do something different and succeed this time. Because if he doesn't, the planet dies, the memories die, Cloud dies. Also, the memory of Clouds goes away, which is a spirit anchor or spirit core of Sephiroth's being. If that's gone, he will dissipate as well, and it's no more. So this is practically the only thing that he can do now. And since Aerith is also within the live stream and also master of it and can manipulate memories, she can also go back through herself and counteract this. Now, this being said, going back to Zack here. Zack died, of course. But here, in this scene, we're about to see again on the stream, we see whispers floating about the battlefield. And since there is no change, it's exactly like Crisis Core. Why would they be there to change anything? And you allude to that.
No reason.
They try to change fate themselves, like as a last resort, as a failsafe, because they know, okay, we're about to be disintegrated because our prison wasn't able to keep Sephiroth in check or in this prison chained up because of Cloud and the others who broke the prison. And now it's the only thing is to change certain things to then create other circumstances moving forward, which would then be able to foil Sephiroth's plan as well. Because now things have changed, and maybe Cloud isn't able to defeat Sephiroth anymore, as he did like 3 times already in the past. 5 years ago, at the end of OG, and at the end of Advent Children. And this is where Zack comes in. He now lives, thanks to the Whispers installing a failsafe. And now he's alive, another pure soul, as you said. He wants to be a hero. He is, even though he has Genova cells in him, he is kind of unaffected by them. And also very strong-willed, wants to do good, to do right, and he's a good agent for fate to kind of save the planet from an upcoming possible disaster. Which short tangent, and Sleepezi will like that. Genesis is also in this whole thing.
Yeah.
Can you say that one more time?
Genesis.
Genesis. Oh my god.
There was one thing that you said then about how, like the Genova cells haven't affected Zack yet. One thing that I kind of talk about in my video is how it would be quite interesting if it turns out that the planet's kind of made a bad choice. Because, I mean, how long is it after the experimentation? It's like 2...
Oh, you mean the degradation, yeah.
Not just the degradation, but any kind of adverse effects to, like the testing that went on in Nibelheim. I mean, how long is it? It's about a week, 2 weeks from Nibelheim to Midgard?
2 months, I think.
Was it 2 months?
Or something like that. It's hard to say.
So there is a possibility still that we might see some kind of degradation or Genova mutation in Zack, and the planet's made a bad choice. That could be
However,
another interesting twist.
I don't quite remember where it was. I think it was into Ultimania. It was confirmed that S-cell soldiers don't degrade. They don't. Only G-type soldiers.
Yeah. Yeah, so the degradation, definitely not. But
Yeah.
you never
And
know, there
not
might be some other side effect.
Yeah. However, yeah, the side effect of most soldiers is they have one thing that they are obsessed about. Genesis is obsessed with
Yeah.
Loveless, all these other shenanigans. Sephiroth at the start is
Okay.
okay, but then has a god complex and mother complex, whatever. And Gilles with this honors and dreams, it's his whole shtick. Zack wants to be a hero. That's his whole shtick. Cloud, yeah, this is a kind of weird situation because he's not really himself until after the live stream event. So I don't see Zack turning into some sort of Genova monster or something like that, or even a black-robed man, as some other people have theorized that he's number 2. I'm not on board with that for several reasons, but he's the hero, and many of you by now know that hero is also one that comes up in Loveless, the hero, the prisoner, the traveler, and Loveless also ties to Genesis, and Genesis is now a champion of Minerva. He goes to sleep and only awakes when the next crisis comes to maybe, I don't know, destroy or something, the planet or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, like an imbalance thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
an imbalance, something that's too menacing or too. I can't find the right words right now, but something that is almost deadly to the planet. Kind of something like Omega and Chaos.
Mhm.
Kind of
Yeah.
cataclysm.
Last resort to save the live stream, but not as sweeping as like world killing or like Zirconiad would do away with humanity.
Well, and
or
that's the
life.
funny thing about it too, right? Is that what ultimately, like, and this is just me explaining the function of the planet. But the weapons respond to the black materia being activated, and then Zirconiad in Before Crisis awakens, and then a weapon also awakens to combat Zirconiad, and that's the Jade weapon.
Right.
So
isn't it summoned because the Turks killing Zirconiad upsets the balance, and then the Jade weapon goes to kill?
It changes targets essentially. Is that the awakening is for Zirconiad, but because the Turks eliminate Zirconiad, the target becomes the Turks.
The Turks are now the planetary
now
threat.
The bigger problem, yeah.
Right, exactly. Is that if you're causing, like, and that's the thing about it is that it's almost like two halves of one whole, like in terms of the activation and then the activation of another side. So the activation of something dooming or the destruction of the world, and then something to bring life back to it. So what happens then is that you have those two parallels in that instance, but then you have that same thing happening in the DOC ending cutscene, which is that the point of Omega and the point of Chaos is to do the same sort of function of Zirconiad and Jade weapon. But the thing is that both of them are destroyed, and then Genesis wakes up. So the point is that because of the way that he ends up where he does in Dirge of Cerberus, and in turn in the timeline, he's in this position in the original game. The Whisper Harbinger is also very much like the weapon, a weapon of the planet. And so what we have yet to see in this story is a counterbalance to the destruction of this, or Zack is the counterbalance to that
I was about
destruction.
to say,
or Genesis is a counterbalance to not only Zack and the Harbinger and the party. So like maybe it's a little bit of everything happening that makes this possible, because the Whispers are a function of the Whisper Harbinger. So the fact that Zack lives more would coincide with the fact that this is an imbalance being caused rather than something that is being created opportunistically by the Harbinger, because him surviving is not what the Whispers seem to be there to do. Or they're just gone, right? Or I guess they would, because they're still around by the time, but I don't know. I don't know what the timing of that is going to entail. But I will say that it seems likely that Genesis, rather than waking up in DOC, would awaken to something that is more fitting to resolve this crisis. But the point that makes this interesting to me is that the planet is a very huge aspect of the conflict towards the end of the game in the original. Like the weapons are destroying like entire cities, towns, like they're just wreaking destruction because the planet isn't a focused entity. It doesn't know the list of things to solve. It just tries to literally broad stroke reset.
It just defending itself. It has no moral position on humanity.
It's the same with holy. The holy materia is the same thing. So the point being made here is that this is what makes this such an appealing idea to me for Remake in particular, is because I really like that aspect of the original game, is that the planet is it doesn't care about humanity. It just cares about itself. Yep. And there's a lot of parallels with that sort of instinct of survival and these planetary functions being demonstrated in all aspects of the game. And I like that frames the party in a way of not only fighting against the structure of, like, you know, the Genova and all of that character brings to the story, but I think the structure placed in the function of the planet and how that is inherently what is also contributing to the problems that we're seeing in the story. And I think the whole idea of that is to look at Midgar as an example of like this structured like function, and like this functions because that's just the way it is. Like this is how civilization works. Like you just take whatever you want, which is sort of like what the president's saying, is that you disregard human life. That is a direct reflection of the planet's perspective on the people in it. It doesn't care. So that's what is ultimately important, is that the micro event happening in Midgar is a reflection directly into what a lot of what is brought up with like the bigger themes introduced with the Harbinger, and the concept of balance, and the concept of structure, and the concept of defying that structure in order to find an answer. So these are all things that I think will play into whatever Zack's role is in this game 100%. But it's very hard to say what that is going to be.
It is, yeah.
There's some bizarre things about all this too. Like, so like just for instance, the stamp bag. Okay, so theoretically, what we're looking at, if we're seeing a different dog, is we're looking at a timeline that diverged, I mean, potentially 30 years ago.
Yeah, because that design would have to be made, put in place, put on the packet, distributed. So yeah, it's not something that's happened really early, recently.
Right, and it like an easy, simple thing is that the past is being changed, and that's what's going on here. But technically, the Whispers are dissolving like after this right here. So we saw the Terrier stamp bag before the defeat of the Whispers. And so it could be that they don't understand time travel, which, like, I mean, nobody does because it doesn't exist. But but also, like, they're not, I don't necessarily want to say that this is their strong suit storytelling, is like quantum mechanics or or timeline stories. Like I'm I'm not saying that's their strong point or even their focus. I think I'm more in the with Sleepezi on this, that this is all sort of about characters and relationships and creating equilibrium within the world system. And so like the details and the mechanics of time travel are, you know, um, maybe probably not the focus. Um, but the other thing that like this is one of those things I almost don't like to bring up because it's really, but I brought up like with Vyzz a couple times, and it's that Midgar looks different in the Zack scenes. Like it just does. Like in the reactors are boxy, and um, I am I have just for my own mental health put it in the space of like they made a design change, and it was like people, not that scene right there that we looked at, like we're talking about people that maybe aren't communicating well with asset management. There was in the Ultimania, there was a Numura did say that there were some things that made it to the final game that he didn't intend for people to put in there, and he just didn't notice. Like, oops, like it made the final cut. And I always thought that he was talking about that, but like we cannot get around. That is a different Midgar we are seeing in that scene, and it is really upsettingly coincides with that the Terrier bag shows up right there too. So what does that mean? I mean, does that lend more credit to the Avengers thing? And then there's this scene right here, which is clearly metaphorical, but also like Midgar has been fixed. And
Yep.
what does that mean? Who knows? I don't know. Do you guys have any like salient theories as to what that means, or are you with me and just like whatever?
So
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I actually am going to have to say that I have to step away. But I do really appreciate being on with you guys. And it has nothing to do with the subject matter, of course.
But, I mean, it's pretty clearly involved with whatever insane
with the police,
insane
or
police
Zack
thing that's happening in the background.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on, if I'm going to be honest. But
no,
I do
that's
have to go.
fine. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, and thank you. Nice meeting you, Sector 6, and nice as always talking to you, Vyzz. And
for sure. I'm glad you could make it today.
Yeah, right. This time, we'll see about next time being on for a little longer. But
and realistically, we for the rest of us, we probably I could probably do 30 more minutes. But Sleepezi, you're I love you. You're my friend, and I can't wait to actually see you in person again, and then we'll play some video games. And please subscribe to his channel.
Yeah, I'd appreciate if anybody who hasn't seen it already, go check out my latest video. It's a long one, but I can assure you that it's not. It's comprehensible, and then I hope that it plays all directly into Intergrade, and I think I've gotten a couple of key aspects of it down. So
dead on.
It's definitely worth your time.
Thank you guys, and thank you as always, Clark, for letting me on. So. I'll see you guys later, and enjoy the rest of the conversation. Fingers crossed for Zack.
Yeah, have a good one.
Yeah, you guys too. Take care.
Take care. All right. So what was I saying now? Now, there you just threw a whole lot of details at me to cover for an hour or something.
Well, look, I mean, so we got the stamp bag that had to have been diverted. Yeah, and then the new Midgar glossing. What do you think?
Yeah. So currently, it's still something I keep thinking over and over again. But the stamp bag is, for one thing, it's symbolical. It means something has changed. It's not the same anymore. But since it's happened, as you said before, the explosion of the Whisper Dome, something has changed before. But I can explain it this way: as the Whispers were observing the battlefield before they entered the Singularity. In the Singularity, we defeated the Harbinger. And that was probably the exact moment during their last seconds of being able to do something, started actually doing something or ensure that Zack survives. Because after that, it wasn't possible anymore because Sephiroth had all the control, complete control over the Whispers, negative live stream, what have you.
Okay,
So,
I see what you're saying, and there's some proof for that. If we watch the scene, you will see that the moment, like before the stamp bag shows up, you see signs of conflict with the Whispers. You see gold streaks going through the air,
yes,
and so
purple
for
also.
yeah, and so for those that don't know, the original design for the Whispers was a golden flaky sand. And then Nomura pitched a redesign. And the redesign, by the way, is based on the shades from Near Replicant, which that is confirmed by the Material Ultimania. And if you know what the shades are, no spoiler, they're basically what we think the Whispers are, like souls in the live stream, etc. Yes. But as we watch this scene, so there's already signs of conflict, which makes it seem like maybe what the Whispers are doing is as they sense their defeat, they are going back and changing things. Is that kind of what you're getting at?
Exactly.
Okay.
Not right here in this scene we see. This is just observation right now because nothing happens yet. We're not in the Singularity yet. But as soon as we're about to defeat the Harbinger, or each time we cut off a limb, maybe each time we cut off a limb and we see a flash of the future, something happens, something gets changed. Maybe because they know, oh, we're one step closer to not existing anymore. Let's do something about it. That's pure speculation, but it could be. But what I also could see is, and this would be another parallel to the original game. If you guys remember, while we fight Sephiroth, he is still holding Holy in check. He's still sitting on Holy during the whole last battle. So it's possible that this also contributed to his demise because he wasn't at full strength, because he still needed some strength to hold Holy back. And Holy only comes after we defeat him, but like right after.
Yeah, because it's all caged up by like that red kind of rock in the final fight, isn't it?
Yeah.
Pardon?
So in the final fight of Final Fantasy VII, when you fight in Sephiroth, there's kind of like a red sort of structure behind him just before the fight, and I'm pretty sure that's kind of like meant to represent him restraining Holy and like keeping Holy held back.
Mm-hmm. It's one of the few instances of the color too, which I found very interesting. Yeah. That red. So
yeah, because you don't really see it at any other point, do you?
I think this red was
thank you,
kind
Conan.
of a precursor of the purple or the negative live stream.
Mm-hmm.
Like
I do too. Yeah,
green are opposites of each other.
Well, and so and that's interesting. So in the OG, on Safer Sephiroth, the seventh wing is very clearly red colored. And the latest iteration of Safer Sephiroth we've seen is actually in Smash Brothers, and they changed the wing color to be much purpler.
Really?
They did.
Yeah, this is red, gone from red to purple. It seems like. So yeah, the parallel I wanted to talk about is we also fight Sephiroth again in the remake, which wasn't there in the original. And he controls the Whispers. So it's possible that he, while in control of the Whispers, which is probably what he also wanted, he would be able to change stuff as well while fighting, which is probably also why we are able to defeat him, which is why he's not strong enough, because he's multitasking again.
So
this is
it's
also just pure speculation.
so it's possible that what we're looking at is that the Terrier timeline is the one that Sephiroth has altered, is what you're getting at.
It is a possibility, yeah, because
Yeah.
it has to be a change more than 15 years in the past, at least, because we see a book with the beagle stamp in
Right.
Aerith's room, which hasn't been touched for 15 years.
Right. And initially, the first soldier was going to be our confirmation that it's at least 30 years old, but now we know that that was just machine learning
Yeah.
from the VR. Yeah.
Yes. Or if the first soldier, this what we experience is also a memory, like Remake Part 1.
Right.
It could just tap into the rest of the live stream's memory and display those things.
Well, how the VR works seems to be materia. There's a materia
Yeah,
at the center of
for
the
sure.
VR
Yeah.
simulator. So, I mean, it's not. I hate to like possibly insinuate that super BS explanation as to why we can shoot up the church is lore relevant, but there is a little bit of precedent for why it's possible.
Well, they did
Yeah,
say that we're
definitely.
going to get some story content out of the first soldier as well, didn't they? We're going to get some like original stories around
Yep.
Sephiroth, probably.
Yeah, and
So,
that
I
that will
mean,
show up in Ever Crisis. Yeah,
yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah, and I'm actually very
I'm really
excited for
stoked for
that.
that. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
Jinx. Yeah.
The main thing I'm looking forward to with it, if I'm being honest.
Mm.
Me too.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us had really hoped that what the first soldier was a Sephiroth story.
Yeah.
Yes, Sephiroth
Yeah,
DLC or something like that.
yeah, or even a full game.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
but hey, we'll take what we can get. Thank you for the
Yeah,
follows throughout all this, by the way. I won't. I'm not going to take up too much more time. So, in chat,
that's fine.
if you guys would start composing questions as we wrap down, um, what okay, what is your dream scenario for Zack in terms of survival? Does Zack make it to part 3? Or does he die? Or, well, we won't even say part 3. Does he make it to the end of the story? Or is part of his character so like irreparably tied to sacrifice that he's definitely gonna die? What are your thoughts? Answer that question while the audience starts asking us questions. And if you want your question to be seen, I strongly recommend highlighting it, and we will I'll focus on those.
So,
You go first, Sector
yeah,
6.
I'll jump in. So, the way I feel that the Zack thing's going to pan out long term is I don't think we're going to get to. I don't think we're going to see like a full story following Zack. I do think it's definitely going to be something similar to like the Laguna scenes from Final Fantasy VIII. There'll be certain
Yes.
points in the story where we will cut to Zack. Whether we'll control him or not, or it'll be a cutscene. I don't think they'll miss the opportunity to let people control Zack for a little bit. Do you know what I mean? Crisis Core fans will die for that. So I think we will get to control him to a certain degree. As far as survival goes, I just feel like there's a strong chance that he could become a bit of an end game player and kind of make it towards the end of the narrative. I don't think he's going to end up in the remake timeline. I think he is going to stay separate where he is. But I do think that there's got to be a purpose to him being there. I'm grasping for what that is 100%, but there's got to be some sort of purpose to it. So I do feel like he is going to make it quite deep into remake, if not towards the very end, just separate in his own timeline.
Yes and no. It's really hard to predict and say without compromising the original story. But since he survives and the developer makes such a big deal out of it, and since especially the Japanese audience love Zack, he
Yes.
probably will make it to the end of the remake series. However, it could be done in Laguna scenes, as you suggested, or differently altogether. I personally don't believe in parallel timelines. Like, this just doesn't fit the Final Fantasy VII lore for me.
Yeah.
The only parallel I could see is Livestream's memory and reality, but we already covered this in, or they covered this in Remake Part 1 with, or at least this is how I interpreted it, that there's already parallel going on, and we're now in this new reality, or at least what will be the new reality going forward, with all of Remake's events being locked into the timeline, so to speak, a timeline rewrite
Yeah.
or a reset,
Like a
so to
branch
speak.
or
Both
something maybe.
works, yeah. And since Zack is now alive, in theory, he could just screw everything up, because his death, or Cloud's reality, Cloud's journey, relies on Zack's death. This is what most people are upset about, I wager. This is the main contention.
And I don't actually see that being true for Cloud. I think as long as Zack died in Cloud's memory, to his perspective, I don't think there's any difference in the way that Cloud has developed in Remake.
If they don't meet, for sure, yeah, that's what I mean. If they meet, or if he doesn't leave Cloud's side, this would be a problem.
Yeah,
but there are now different theories or different ways it could go.
Yeah.
One is, like we discussed in our stream a few weeks ago, that since our group were in the singularity, now come out into a new reality where they all died because the Whispers weren't able to like save them.
Right, because
Zack is now alive,
yeah,
mucked everything up, and everything is different now.
Yeah.
But that would then kind of undo the whole first game.
Right, including the DLC.
Yeah, including the DLC, which would be so strange. So I don't think that's the case. And I had another thought, which Final Fantasy Peasant, of all people, kind of confirmed in one of his own Zack videos. I'm in some points I am kind of with him that Zack is now alive, and since the Whispers made sure he's alive, at least in theory, that they gave him memories or knowledge and a mission that he now knows what to do, and that he needs to stay out of the way of the from the party for quite some time and do his own thing. Maybe help Avalanche, maybe help Biggs, Wutai, what have you. Just support other characters, other people, other entities that are not directly connected to our heroes' journeys.
Right. And
that scene of him taking Cloud back towards Midgar at the end, that could be happening in the remake timeline earlier on, and then Zack goes and does his own thing.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, exactly. He just drops him off at, for example, yeah, it depends where. Maybe Sector 5 at first. No, maybe not, because the Aerith is there, and he doesn't want to change the timeline too much.
Because he's been, at that point, he's been informed by the Whispers. The Whispers have let him know what his role is.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You can just leave him on the cliff. Leave him on the cliff with the Buster Sword. Cloud wakes up, Zack's gone.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I mean,
something happens.
How that a couple of you have touched, well, that both of you have touched on at one point, is like with this alternate reality thing not really fitting the lore of Remake. And I'm getting worried that they might be like doing something along the lines of, like the many worlds type thing, where every reality is kind of playing out alongside each other and using the live stream as sort of like a tether to that. And I'm really worried that that is something that they're doing, because I don't think that'd work.
I think, I'm not saying that many worlds stories don't work or can't work. I have nothing, I have no real context for where it fits in Final Fantasy. Like, and I don't want to say in Final Fantasy period, because I too have played Final Fantasy 13-2 before anybody starts throwing that at my chat. I know that it's a mechanic they use, but it does not fit with 7 at all. So entirely new mechanic, whereas any of the other mechanics that we've talked about so far, like things happening in the live stream, those are all pretty consistent with Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of there. I'm kind of there with you guys. And in terms of the question, I think there is a bigger chance that Zack survives than Aerith by a mile. I think it's
Oh, for
very
sure, yes.
important that I think that Aerith's significance in dying is a lot more than just that, you know, we didn't expect it, just that, you know, grief was supposed to be a certain way. She also represented something. She represented something that I think is important. She was the last ancient. She was the last Cetra. And the extinction of a species is sort of, it's one of the turning points of the story. And if they abandon that motif, I think they are kind of missing something. And
Definitely.
I don't think they are missing that. I'm not getting that sense. I do think that if gun to my head, do both of them probably end up dead? I'm going to say yes. I think it's more likely that Zack survives than Aerith, but that I think they might both die.
If he did survive. If Zack lives as well, it would purely be just to, you know, give the fans a happy feeling. And I don't think he would.
Would they feel happy though? Like it's kind of sad. It's kind of sad Zack living. Yeah.
Yeah, he'd just be on his own, wandering about.
Cisne could come in and
Yes.
Yeah.
I just upset somebody by saying that. I'm not saying that I want that to happen. I'm just saying it's a possible thing that can happen. Please don't be mad at me. Okay, so I have some questions now. So let's answer these highlighted questions, and then we'll call it a day. And the first is from my good friend Ars Omnia. Question: could Scarlet's inclusion and intermission potentially point to the ultimate materia being a Shinra ruse orchestrated by her in order to lure Wu Tai spies to Midgar and further Heidegger President Shinra's push for war? And I love that idea. And one of the things I like about that idea, and I have no basis for this. So this is not one of those theories based on anything other than just a gut feeling. I don't trust GJ at all. I don't know what it is about him. I think he's a Wu Tai informant to Shinra somehow. I think that. And I just think so. And I cannot explain why. So don't be mad at me if I'm wrong. I feel like this could totally be. That was the first thing I thought of when I saw her, because they presented it almost as if she's, you know, like she's tied to the whole GJ, like the platefall revelation, like thing. Which also I do just want to address that in the trailer, and Sleepezi was talking about this before we started. In the trailer, it sounds like Al in the Japanese version, GJ is telling us that the plate is going to fall. Like he informs the party, both Yuffie and Sonon, that the plate's going to fall. But in the trailer, it has Yuffie very clearly telling Sonon, "Oh, the plate's going to fall." Like she's the one informing of that. That bugs me. I haven't figured out what.
It bugged me too.
Okay, I haven't figured out what's wrong about that. So I guess we'll have to wait. What do you guys think about Ultimate Materia being a ruse?
You, Vyzz?
It would be a really good twist in there, one that would make sense, because Shinra has their eyes and ears everywhere. And noticing that they're under attack, at least a few players, for example, Scarlet and Heidegger not, or the President not and Heidegger maybe. Could be, yeah. Because Scarlet knows a lot more than we might think. She's also one of those few people that know who that Elfey and Veld or Verdo are still alive.
Totally.
Oh yeah.
If memory serves correct.
So for me, I don't think it's so much a case of them feeding intel to Wutai so much. I think it could be a case of bad intel though, because I mean we see the scene in game where Scarlet's kind of experimenting on materia, so they're definitely working on some kind of ultimate materia or something like that. But I don't think they're there. I think Wutai have kind of possibly got the wrong end of the stick, so to speak. They've kind of gone in there all guns blazing, thinking that there's something to get, and Shinra just aren't quite there at the minute. That's what I'm thinking. So the mission's on, but they're going to come away with nothing, and then they're going to end up seemingly losing a fair bit in a mission for nothing.
That's also possible.
Yeah, that's also
my
good. I
theory is
like
still
that.
that Scarlet is trying to produce huge material because that's her whole shtick in the original. She just wants this huge material.
Yeah, Wutai could definitely be viewing that as some kind of ultimate materia for sure.
Definitely. And in the Japanese description or summary, it explicitly says materia developed by Shinra. Never in the English translation, which bugged me. But the Japanese says developed.
That is so upsetting. That is so annoying. Really and also, it makes me think, by the way, so a lot of people are like, well, is Rama the materia? I don't think so. And I think that line is exactly why. Is developed by Shinra. I don't imagine them developing Rama. And it also does bring up something interesting about Rama's clothing. That he looks like in the Materia's Ultimania, there is is concept art for various Cetra members, and the clothing on two of the Cetra members has a purple motif.
I know which one you mean. Yeah.
And the patterning is very similar, very reminiscent of what shows up on Rama's clothing. So that was a little detail that really excited me. So okay, moving on. We've got.
Just looking for that one thing I would say about the development of materia and stuff like that. I don't think Rama is the materia that's been developed, but I mean Chadley develops a fair bit of materia, so it is possible, I suppose. I don't think it is, but I suppose it is a little bit possible, isn't it?
Yeah, and Chadley's this whole other thing. Yeah,
where I'm going to talk about like materia fusion potentially coming into Remake going forward, you know, as a way to kind of level up some of the materia that we've already got in Remake Part 1. And Chadley's...
What? 50?
Madness.
Oh my god, Salinil. I love you. You're so amazing. Oh my god, that is beyond kind. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Oh man. You're the best.
Did I get one? I don't think so.
Hey Salinil, do you have a question? Because if you have one, we'll end the stream answering it. You're the best. I thank you. For those of you that don't know who Salinil is amazing. A contributor to the fan community, to content creators. Not just me. There's a lot, and it seems like everything that Salinil is behind is about togetherness and creating community and content, and that's what I'm about, and I'm beyond grateful for that. And so, okay, what he or she is probably, or they are probably subbing me for, though, is to provide content, and so that means let's find a question. Yes. And so I did see a question about, and it's now buried because Salinil is an absolute god or goddess.
Yeah, I can't scroll up anymore.
I can't scroll up anymore, but I saw something about the White Wing. If you guys want to re-ask your questions, something about the White Wing, and then so if
I also remember a question about Sephiroth meddling with the Zack thing, that he's responsible for that. but I only saw a few words.
Yeah, I only saw a few words of that too, and also I think, I think you kind of addressed that, and I think that's a big. I think that's just as possible as it having to do with Aerith, like
Yeah.
Zack dying, getting his white wing, saving Cloud with his identity. Yeah, that is something that a Crisis Core thing about wings. Wings is a big thing, and you can kind of check that out in the video titled "Aerith Dies" by Sleepezi. We go over that point pretty extensively, and what wings are. But yeah, I would be stoked to see Cloud, or Zack get his wing if he dies. I'd be excited to see that. Okay, did Dak Dagger have a question that I missed? Guys, feel free to re-ask those questions.
In the meantime, I can ask you a little question about the intermission trailer latest.
Do it.
Do you know or have you seen where Sonon's sister dies? The location?
It is outside of Midgar. It is in the same spot that Zack dies.
Everything happens.
Like Zack survives. Don't remind me.
Maybe Sonon's sister has to die there for Zack to survive.
Oh, mate, that's juicy.
Because why would it be at the same spot?
So I mean, this ties together to
has been paid.
Two topics, right? Like Intergrade and intermission in the new trailer, and Zack. Do we think we'll see any more Zack in the DLC?
Until about 10 seconds ago.
At least a reference. Because there are two more. There are two more pieces of evidence for that.
That's true. Okay, I'm kind of shook on that one. I'm gonna have to think about that.
I'm a bit hurt by that one. Oh wow.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, that could even explain the whole reason that intermission's happening, because intermission could be something that Sonon's pushed for purely because of his accelerated hate for Shinra, purely because his sister's died, which only happened because Zack survived. Oh my god.
That would be a huge butterfly effect right there.
And if that ended up
in the original continuity.
Yeah. My only problem with that is it's again, it's behind a wall. I mean, if you have to play the DLC to understand that, oof. Okay. All right, we got some questions. Yes. Okay. And then we're going to raid. We're probably going to raid Tatsumaki. So we've got from Elkit, do you think there will be more story elements of Sung, possibly Cisne 2, recognizing who Cloud is and that he was the other target who got away? I am 100% sure that's going to happen. I am 99% sure that's going to happen. Maybe not. Yeah, maybe not exactly like that, but I think we're going to see Cisne again. I think we're going to see maybe the other player Turks. I would be super stoked on other player Turks.
Yeah, because you don't think about it in the original game, but when you look back at the original story after playing through the compilation, you kind of think, why are people not pulling Cloud on his shit much earlier? What's the deal?
Yeah, what's going on?
Is there a big group conspiracy to just not tell Cloud what the deal is? There's got to be some sort of explanation for that.
Totally. Okay. What do you think, Vyzz?
I sort of spaced out because somebody tagged me here in the chat.
No worries.
To figure out what the guy means, what the
and that's fine. We've got some more questions. So, do you think Chadley has something to do with the rebirth of Vyzz, Also, what do you think of Max Dude's ideas about Zack and Cloud teaming up to fight Sephiroth? Would you be happy to see that? Do I think Chadley has to do something with the rebirth of Vyzz? Well, I don't think Vyzz is reborn, okay, to be clear. I think Vyzz is still alive exactly where he's supposed to be. I think Vyzz is down tied to that chair like he's supposed to be right now. But that what we're seeing, Vyzz is in the VR, probably through SND. And I think Chadley has something to do with that for sure. For sure. Whether he is an agent in it,
he's conscious?
yeah. Whether he's an agent of negativity or positivity and all of that, I'm not totally sure. But I think it's going to be big. Whatever it is, I think it's going to be surprising and big. And then for me personally, as to the second half of that question, if Zack and Cloud team up to fight Sephiroth, I'm going to be really not super stoked on it. It won't break the game for me, but I do not want that to happen. I think Sephiroth and Cloud need to hash it out. I think it's critical that those two are in the final battle alone. Yeah. Personally, that's what I'm hoping for. What are your thoughts on both of those? Go on.
Unless Zack is there because one of my theories is that Cloud needs to quote unquote sacrifice himself to keep Sephiroth on the planet when Omega takes the rest away the live stream away from the planet. And Zack could be there to replace Cloud and sacrifice himself so that Cloud could live. Probably, maybe, I don't know.
I think that Aerith, whatever she is doing, including that weird thing that she does to the singularity, I think the end game of that might be to save Cloud from having to sacrifice himself sever the connection,
sever the bond,
sever the bond. Because I do think that the yellow that we see in the flashback scene or in the Zack scenes where the whispers are there and then we see the yellow, I think that matches pretty succinctly the color of what Aerith does to the singularity. So I think there's a lot to be said about that connection. So what do you think, Sector 6, about Zack showing up to fight Sephiroth with Cloud?
I mean, personally, like from a story perspective, I'd hate it. Like, I genuinely would hate it. It'd be horrifying. As far as the characters go, like, I definitely agree with the fact Cloud and Sephiroth need to be the two that hash it out. That needs to be their fight. I think in the story, I mean, realistically, if you look at it, Zack's fight is probably going to be Genesis, if we're being honest, isn't it? Something to that effect. I don't think he'd go directly into conflict with Sephiroth because we all saw how that went for him. And that was a pretty weak Sephiroth in comparison to what he is now. Whereas you see the conflict that he has throughout Crisis Core with Genesis and Angeal and things like that. I feel like there's much more of a story there to be told. And it can still have an effect on the overall story involving Cloud and Sephiroth, but just doesn't put them into direct conflict with each other. I think that's going to be a much better way to do it.
That's awesome. I agree. I fully agree. Okay, so I cannot thank you guys enough for spending the last almost 3 hours with me. And at 124 in the trailer, you can see Yuffie wearing the red ribbon from Advent Children. What do you think of that?
I tried to find it earlier because you asked it earlier in chat, but I couldn't see it without spacing out and not following the conversation anymore. 124.
Yeah, I'm jumping on there.
Oh my goodness! I had no idea. So
You mean the one the ribbon or the thread that's holding her arm guard together? I think it's just Wu-Tai stuff because Zonon also has those on his holster of the spear or the bow staff. and all in general, Wutai soldiers have a lot of those threads or bands or whatever
Holding the
to hold
gear,
their
yeah.
to
I
hold
mean,
their
yeah, I love the
armor.
attention to detail on it for sure. No, I wouldn't say so.
Huh.
I'd say it's just part of the outfit rather than
I'll
like
have
an
to look at
adventure.
that. That is fascinating to me. I will
Yeah.
check that out.
It looks
You
more
see
like
it
a
as well.
string.
You see it as well when she's showing the coffee bean, whatever that is.
Huh.
But yeah, for me, it belongs to her armor, to her
Yeah.
arm guard.
Yeah, that's what I'm seeing too. Okay. Well, I mean, yeah. It's a good observation regardless though, and that would certainly have
Definitely.
pretty massive implications. And I mean
Oh, yeah, it
that's kind of
does.
like what we're all looking for, is we're looking for this like insane thing that you know that makes all of this make sense for us. I mean, that's why everybody's like finding shapes in an eyeball reflection. We want to know, um and I think ultimately at the end of Intergrade, um there's no way that we're gonna know. We're just gonna have more questions. What?
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, it's gonna definitely do this. Oh,
Although I really hope that Intergrade or Intermission sort of addresses Zack's future just a tiny little bit, just
Jeez.
an additional bit of view into the future of Remake.
yeah, definitely.
I
And
really hope we get something from Before Crisis, to be honest. I'd love something to do with the Turks and Before Crisis in it. That'd be brilliant. I don't think we'll get it, but
me too. I legitimately think that Before Crisis is my favorite portion of the compilation. So I'm really excited that we're going to get to entertain some of this. So okay, there's two questions here, and I can only answer one of them, and then we're going to go raid a friend of mine who may or may not be on my show one day, named Curious Joy, who's great, just great. But okay, we'll go with a we'll go with Annoyed Panda because they tried to ask this earlier. And do you think Sephiroth could meddle with Zack in a way he could use against Cloud in some capacity, like to mess up Cloud even further and have a very rough reunion? So I absolutely think he is gunning for making Cloud's life very hard. I think he's already doing that stuff. He's already doing, and he could use Zack as a tool in that. He could, there's all sorts of ways he could do that. And I think we've kind of answered that question enough. So we'll disclose with this. This is again from J21090. Given that Zack survives, what kind of interaction do you want to see between him and Aerith, assuming the story goes in that direction for them to cross paths? That's a great question, and I think it's one of the big fears of Zack, is Aerith. The Zack and Aerith thing.
I have a feeling that they don't meet, that Zack only encounters the group, if he's still alive, after Aerith dies.
Yeah.
And to the previous question, I can also see Sephiroth being partially or fully responsible for Zack's survival, so that he can take away another life or another loved one from Cloud, if Aerith isn't enough, like a failsafe for himself or something.
I would imagine that interaction would be very awkward if it happens. But it would be an opportunity for them to characterize both characters more. Like, Zack could say something along the lines of, I'm sorry. And I think that Aerith would be like, I know. I do. I really think that that's how it would go. I think there would be, they would capitalize on more negative space, because that's the way that Aerith generally communicates. She's cryptic. She relies on player knowledge of the previous game in order for us to understand that there's more to what she says. I think they would operate in that sort of dynamic. And I think if Zack is going to be this hero character, he's going to have to be different. His characterization is going to be different. He's going to be a lot more stoic, which is definitely not him, and so that'll be interesting to see how they handle that.
It kind of gets there a little bit towards the end of Crisis Core, but no, I definitely agree with you. He's going to need to definitely up the stoicism levels.
Especially if he's a warden of the timeline,
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It's like the responsibility is just amplified a stupid amount.
That's why I personally prefer Zack being the product of the Whispers or the planet changing things, and not Sephiroth.
Yeah.
Because he's done enough already.
Yeah, that little bugger. Okay, guys, I am so thankful to both of you for your time. I'm thankful to Sleepezi. Please go support the heck out of these guys. I hope that this can shine a light on both their content if it hasn't already. And I can't thank you guys enough. I'm going to go ahead and start the raid command now. I love you guys all. And both these guys will definitely be back. Don't you worry.
Just want to say as well, a massive thank you to you for having me on here. Like, I really do appreciate it. It's been a great time meeting you all, and yeah, look forward to doing it again in the future.
Awesome.
Yeah, same to you. It was really a pleasure to be here today. And also thanks to chat for supporting us.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you to the chat.
Really great.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. I'm starting this raid now, so please go give Curious Joy as much love as you can, all right?
For sure.
Okay, started the raid command.
Let's go.
Oh, and oops, I mistyped it. But at least it told me, jerks. Okay. Did I type it right this time? Professor over here. Okay. Everybody, let's raid. I love you all. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Okay. Hey, thank you guys.